Gamer models, and we're going to talk about these Panther lower hulls, chassis, and their Maybach engines. Now, as you can see, this is my Berged Panther from an earlier build that I used as a test subject, and as you can see, the engine is in here now, and you'll notice a couple things right away with this engine. It is seated all the way down. This hose does not line up with this. This hose does line up, but this springy bracket thing here lines up with this side, but this springy bracket thing does not line up with this side. And I have to say I made this mistake twice. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Down here, everything lines up. I was able to get this this hose line to line up here. Where's these? There's two little rods in here, right here, and there's supposed to be one on the other side that apparently broke off that are supposed to line up too in some holes. Now, here's when you're building the engine, it's a multi-step process, and I'll show you on my Panther Mark Ost A. This is what I have built up so far in the instructions. And two things fold. I wish I would have left the engine out in the Berged Panther so I could test fit this and then have the whole thing built up. But if you look here, I have chosen to leave off N37, which is the hose that goes from here to the bottom of this tank right here to place in later after this is in for alignment purposes. So I'm leaving that off for alignment purposes. And then I'm also leaving off these two pieces here, this hose and this hose, so after the engine's in, I can line them up perfectly with their location in the engine. Now, what I should have done is these two springs here, N12 and N11, I should have left those off also so I could position them and make sure that they line up with their mounting spots. As I said, I got one to line up, but the other one I didn't get to line up. So here I have glued them on, which I should not have glued them on, and I'm honestly tempted to cut them off. But they're rocked back in the previous build, and it looks like I got them more straight up and down, so they may line up fine. But I would recommend leaving N12 and N11 off, along with N38, N39, and also these two thin bars that are hard to see in there, but they come out of this unit here. I believe they're your throttle linkage. I'm not 100% sure. I would leave those off and glue those into position to where they will connect to the inner walls of the engine compartment. So that's just what I am leaving off on the engine so far to make the fit easier. I haven't done this yet, but here N59 and N58 I am going to make out of lead wire. I'm going to copy of the bends that are on the original, but I'm going to make them out of lead wire, and I'm going to leave them the color they are, and I'm going to put them on at the end because they plug into these two pieces here that I'm leaving off. There are two hoses that come off of here that need to match up with locations in the back of the hull and the engine compartment. And trust me, getting all that to line up is super, super tricky. There's also two little springy things down in here that I put a little steel color on because they're springs that need to fit into holes in the engine compartment. Also, I had glued them on in the past, but as you can see, this one is flexing this wall this way. So it wasn't seated properly. So I'm going to look into how that's going to look on this engine compartment. So basically, I'm going to add this tank system and then these two pieces to this side of the engine, and I'm going to stop right there on the engine. I'm not going to do any more on the engine. I'm going to weather this paint and weather this L44 and N40 and N41. I'm going to get those all painted and weathered up. And then as I build the hull of the engine hull here back, because I leave the tracks for last. As I do this section here, I'll put in these two bulkhead pieces, and then I want to test the fit of this engine in there, and I also want to build, where is it at, to also test the fit of it. This right here, this unit here, which is this section, which you can't see, this section down here, I want to have this built up to test fit behind these two walls, because again, when I glued the walls in, they seemed to be all square and straight, but when I went to fit this piece, there was too much of a separation, and then these radiator pieces did not line up. There was too much of a gap there. There was too many gaps everywhere, and I wasn't happy with the way this turned out. So I want to pre-build all these sections before I install these three bulkheads to make sure the fit is better, because I had a horrible time fitting these sections in after I glued this bulkhead in. And if you look, the bulkhead is flared out, and that's why this isn't fitting in, and this side piece was giving me issues. As you can see, this side piece is tilted down, which is, if it glued in straight, I wouldn't have had that issue. And I think it was because I didn't scrape the paint off correctly from gluing this on. That is why this is the test piece. This is my test piece, and the Panther project is going to be my finished display model. So I use this Berged Panther for, checking things, making sure fits align, and trying to learn from mistakes that I made on this to better understand the Panther model. Because the Panther's got all the extra goodies like the photo etch and things like that in it. So I want it to be I want it to be a better job, and I want all my models to progress to be better, as time goes. I want to produce better models and better display quality models. But in the very beginning of this Berged Panther, I made many mistakes by installing the transmission before painting it. So I wasn't able to paint it or weather it. I didn't get any detail on the control surfaces. The internal wash I used, I didn't use it correctly. So the Panther is so far looking a lot better. I hope you guys think so. Plus, I found a color for the crew compartments. I know it's a little brush strokey, but I'm hoping that the wash I use will hide a lot of that. And a lot of it's going to be obscured anyways. So I got the cream wise. I ended up using this model color Pale Sand because it brushed on nice. That's just the mid colors, I can't seem to get them to brush on. I appreciate the people who left me comments in the last video about tips and tricks. I'm going to try to put a thinner coat on. I will say that after I came back a couple hours later, the two MIG paints that I brushed on did look a little better. This right here looks fantastic. I don't know this was done over Mr. Surfacer 1200. This was done over 1500 black. So I don't know if that makes a difference, but this was brush painted by the MIG paint, and it's pretty much the color that I want my Panther to be. And then this side is the lighter color of the Gob. Hack that up. This is the lighter color of that. I believe this is the 1 and this is the 3. And this right here is the Model Air version. RAL. Gab Dark Yellow. RAL 7028. That is this color here. It's an airbrush paint, but I brushed it on just to get what color it would look like. And it pretty much matches the spray-on dark green surface primer that I used to prime the surface before it was weathered. So that's that color. Then this color here was a mixture of this sand color, the RAL 1001, and the Gob Dark Yellow from Model Air. It was a 50-50 mix, and it gave me this color here. And then over here is the just model color beige that I did a test on brush painting, and that went on very great. It went over a glossy surface, so it could look better. That gloss surface was brushed on, not sprayed. I normally spray my gloss surface, but I was doing a test. As I said, this is my test bed for things. And then this right here is this just the RAL 1001 Sand Ivory. That's what this color is right here. And then this is the mix of the two colors. And then this is what I started, but I stopped because I didn't like it, was a mix of the two big colors. But if I look at the best outer color for the Panther, for what is the restored color, is this Dunkelgelb number 3 from MIG, and it comes in their MIG late German war colors. Because this is a little bit lighter than the color I'm after. So after I put an oil filter on it and some dot washes on it, it's going to darken it down, and it's going to be the color I'm looking for. So, and as I said, this was done over gray Mr. Prime Surfacer 1200, not the Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500. So maybe that's an option I should spray on instead of the black. I like the black because it's a darker undercoat, but I think that the gray-white undercoat of the 1200 might be my best way to go for the MIG colors. And as I said, these are all brushed on because I just wanted to see the tones and shades. Mostly they'll be sprayed on once I work out some airbrush issues. The MIG paints seem to be able to be sprayed pretty much out of the bottle with just very little thinning. And there are hundreds of videos on how to thin paints and spray paints. Some use Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, some use the X20A, some use Ultimate Modeling Products Thinner, some use Vallejo thinner, some use alcohol. I don't know. When I spray my, Mr. Surfacer, I use Mr. Color Leveling Thinner at about 60% thinner to about 40% paint, maybe a little bit more thinner, and it gives me a nice primer coat on my model. When I spray my Vallejo paints, I like to put in 1 drop of Flow Improver and then about 3 drops of airbrush thinner from Vallejo, and then about 6 to 8 drops of their Model Air paint. No, about 10 drops of their Model Air paint, and then mix all that up and then backfeed it, and it seems to give me a nice coat that It takes a little bit longer to dry because of the flow improver and the extra thinner, but it seems to level out and give you a good coat. It doesn't look great at first, but it seems to give you a good coat. With the, here's an airbrush of the MIG paints right here. It is sprayed, but I think I was too far away, and it gave me like an orange peel texture. So I think I have to bring my airbrush in closer and maybe turn down the PSI. On my Iwata Eclipse HPCS, I only shoot about 9 to 10 PSI. So I don't know how much lower I can go. Or maybe I need to go higher. I'm not sure. Or add some retarder or some more flow improver. I'm not sure. But it seems to be semi-drying before it hits the surface and orange peeling. And then I have this Neo for Iwata that I have not tried yet, and I'm hoping that this is going to be my primer airbrush, or my base coating airbrush anyways, and I can use my other one for detailed stuff, or get one with like a 0.2 millimeter, so I can do like pin lines and camo and stuff like that. But that's later down the road. I have not sprayed Tamiya paint through an airbrush yet. I hear it's great through an airbrush. That's my next task, because I heard I can do it with the Mr. Color leveling thinner, and then it gives me the easy cleanup on the airbrush. It's just the Vallejos and MIGs. I clean my airbrush, I take it apart, I clean it, but it seems like the next time I go to use it, it's dirty again. It's still dirty, and I have to clean it again. So I don't understand what I'm doing incorrect on the cleaning. But hopefully I get it down. When I was spraying miniatures, I sprayed an entire 3,000 point Custodes armor team, and I didn't have any issues. I sprayed, primed, and base coated entire black Zombicide, Black Plague, and Green Horde. I primed and base coated every miniature in there with my airbrush. Never had an issue. And it seems now, I don't know. I only used model air and game air and the game colors from Vallejo when I sprayed before. I never sprayed anything else really. I did spray Retributor armor, and that did work out pretty well. But the MIG paints seem to spray nice, but it seems like when I switch to the model air, it seems to give me issues in clogging my airbrush. But the game air didn't have any problems like that. That was almost ready to spray out of the bottle. So we'll see what happens. I am going to wrap this up. I didn't want it to be this long. I just wanted to give you tips on engine building so you can have perfect placement and, lining up those back engine panels, and that's what I'm going to be working on. Listen, guys, the Jagdtiger I'm on it. I work about 3 hours a day on it. I'm not able to get a video up on it right now. I have bits and pieces of a video, but it's very jumbled and not understandable. So I'm going to try to clean that up, and I might have to do clips with a voiceover in the software, which I have to figure out how to do. But there will be an update for that. I basically work a couple hours on each project. I don't want to talk about the airplane. We're not going to talk about that anymore. Just let that go. So there will be aircraft at some point, but that Special Hobby Tempest Mark II, we're not going to talk about that. Yep. So thank you for watching. I am the Crazy Gamer for Crazy Gamer Models. You guys have a fantastic day.